Welcome to New Orleans, Dinesh D'Souza.
Thank you. Thank you very much. What you just saw is not really a trailer, but the opening 10 minutes of our film. And in it, what we try to do is go beyond President Obama, that was the subject of 2016, and take on a much bigger subject. There's a very powerful movement in this country that has now moved into education and the media and Hollywood and politics. And its goal is a fundamental remaking of America. But how do you remake America? How do you remake anything? How do you remake a bridge? Well, to remake a bridge, you have to take down the bridge that was there before. And the remaking of America involves an unmaking of the America that's here now. Now, as Republicans, as conservatives, we have conferences like this one, and we focus on political challenges. How do we take back the Senate? Meanwhile, the left has, over many years, been conducting a long march through the institutions of the culture, taking them over one by one, and moving the goalposts of politics in such a way that when political issues come up, to some degree, they are already settled. We've lost the battle before we even get going. Now, when we look at today's landscape of American politics, there's a real disproportion of allegations between our side and the other side. If you listen to what the left says about us, I hear words like greed, selfishness, materialism, racist, warmonger, and on and on. As conservatives, when we're examining the other side, we say things like, well, they're extremely well-meaning, but their policies just don't seem to work. Now, not only are we being very charitable, but I think we are actually completely misunderstanding our opposition and who they are and what they are up to. So I'd like to give today a very brief analysis of a very different kind than you've heard before of what's going on the other side. I want to begin by imagining a guy who works hard for a living, adding up numbers or sweeping office floors, and he's going home after work, and his home is a little bit underwater, and he's got credit card bills, and he's feeling kind of terrible. And then as he walks around New Orleans or Houston, he looks inside a nice restaurant, and there he sees all kinds of people eating and drinking and laughing, and they're ordering $25 entrees, and the wine is flowing, and there's a limousine outside, and pretty girls are going in and out. And he thinks to himself, what the heck? Why do those people have what they have and not me? At this point, he begins to feel a very powerful human emotion, and that is the emotion of envy. Now, envy, unlike greed, is an extremely secretive emotion. It's an emotion that we don't like to admit not only to others, but also to ourselves. Envy is not the view that, hey, that guy's doing well, so maybe I should start a business. Maybe I should go back to school. Maybe I should better my life. That's not envy. Envy is when you begin to feel, I would like to pull myself up, but just in case I can't do that, it would be equally enjoyable for me to pull that guy down. The destruction of the other is the key to envy. And envy inevitably transmutes itself not only into hatred, but equally significant, self-hatred. Now, why? Why self-hatred? Well, actually, in earlier eras and in aristocratic societies, you didn't have this kind of self-hatred for the obvious reason that one's lot in life was given by chance. In the old days, if you were a serf, you would be like, I'm really unhappy to be a serf, but it's no reflection on me because it's just the luck of the draw. I just got the short end of the stick. And as for the other guy who's a count or a marquis or an aristocrat, he doesn't deserve any credit either because he was born that way. But in a society like ours, where you have social mobility, where you have flexibility, where anybody can start a business, if somebody else is doing better than you are, you begin to realize that you could have done it, you just didn't. You could have written that software program, you could have started that pest control business, you could have written that book, but you didn't. In other words, the creeping thought occurs to you that you suck. Now, so we have now the operating emotions of progressivism, envy, hatred, and self-hatred. Normally, these emotions are quite impotent because you're very frustrated and angry with your lot in life, but you don't know what to do about it. And who should come galloping in on a white horse at this point but Obama, who dismounts and comes up to you and says, hey, I've got a remedy for your problems. You, Dinesh, are not envious at all. You are actually righteously indignant. You see, it's not that you haven't done well enough with your life, it's that those guys sitting in the restaurant, they have been stealing from you. They are in possession of your stolen goods. And so, don't worry, you don't have to do a whole lot other than to vote for me. But if you do, I will then go and take that stuff and I will give some of it to you. So what's really going on here is we see that modern progressivism is a mobilization of envy and resentment, but that's not enough. See, any government that robs Peter to pay Paul can certainly count on Paul's support. But what about Peter? Peter's going to need some convincing. Here in this opening scene to our film, and there's a lot more in the film, we do something unusual in politics. We give a lot of space to the other side. We bring in not just the liberals and the progressives, but also the left. It's a remarkable phenomenon of our time that anti-Americanism, the critique and attack on America today, comes less from a Venezuelan despot or a Russian apparatchik or an Iranian mullah. It comes right from within America. And it's occurring not only in politics, but it's occurring in education from the youngest levels. There's a systematic attempt to perform a transaction that I call the shaming of America. It's a project to replace American pride with American shame. This shaming of America is presented under the name of history. But it's actually not history. It's a bogus history that is cherry-picking facts out of the long succession of events, looking for this and looking for that, and leaving this out and leaving that out. Why? To serve a political objective that I will get to in a minute. But the result of this is that our young people, even at very fine colleges and universities, if you yank them forward and tell them, tell me about American history, their version goes a little bit like this. There was this evil guy, Christopher Columbus, who came a long time ago, took over the country from the Indians and enslaved them. Then we had the hypocritical American founders who asserted that all men are created equal, even while owning themselves slaves and allowing slavery to continue. And American history continues like that, an uninterrupted series of crimes, until good things finally started happening in the 1960s. And this is all that these people know about American history. If you say to them, tell me a little bit about the Industrial Revolution and how that came to America in the 19th century, they go blank. Have you heard of the Second Great Awakening, a religious and spiritual revival that drove the temperance movement and abolitionism? Never heard of that either. In other words, what I'm getting at is that here you have, I won't call it the idiot's view of history, because in a way the students are not to blame for their own ignorance. Their ignorance is the project of their teachers. Their teachers, in other words, want them to learn a morality tale. The shaming of America, in other words, is not innocent. The shaming of America is part of the shakedown of America. Because once you mobilize resentment and you go up to Peter to take his stuff, Peter's going to be reluctant. So it would be really nice if you could grab Peter and put him up against the wall and say, Peter, you're in possession of stolen goods. It's kind of like saying, Peter, you have in your house Nazi art treasures. And of course, Peter can't say, well, I didn't do anything, because even if Peter's great-grandfather got those illicitly, they're still stolen goods. They have to be given back. And here we see the moral thrust of Obamaism and modern progressivism, that the wealth of America, all of it, including yours and mine, is based on theft. And here we also see why the normal Republican and conservative answer, which is to defend the efficiency of capitalism. Obamacare doesn't work. Regulations are going to make things worse. Jobs are going to be lost. Frankly, if the premise is true, none of it even matters. Just like if someone came to recover Nazi art treasures, you couldn't say, I'm an art curator. I have a very good understanding of art, therefore I deserve to keep all the stuff. If it's stolen goods, you have to return it. So similarly, if the critique of America is right, if our prosperity and national abundance is stolen, then Obama's right. America needs to be remade in some fundamental way to return these stolen goods. The critique of the left has been so successful in the past few years because it is an appeal to justice. It's not really justice. It's envy traveling under the passport of justice. But justice is a very powerful value in any society. In fact, it's the primary value. As conservatives, we often appeal to liberty, freedom. But if you look at the American Revolution was initially not in the name of freedom. It was in the name of justice. If you read the Declaration of Independence, it's a series of indictments of the injustice of the crown. Liberty or freedom is the solution to the problem of injustice. In other words, because ruling power becomes tyrannical, because concentrated power becomes so destructive, the idea is let's limit it. Let's give people scope to live their own lives. In other words, the reason we make this film America is we want to challenge the left on its own strong ground. We want to take on its massive indictment of America, an indictment at the end of the day that we believe is bogus, and I think can be exposed for the political charade that it is. This will be an emotionally very powerful film and a very controversial film and a very shocking film because it'll tell people things about their own history that are right in front of them but have been concealed from them for decades. Once we begin telling a new American story and once we begin thinking anew and organizing afresh, our fortunes will change politically. Abraham Lincoln once said, "America is ruled by public opinion." But he did not mean America is ruled by the opinions of the public. The public actually is mostly uninvolved. It's a relatively small group of people who are active in politics, hands-on. These are the people who become lobbyists or delegates or bloggers. This is a small group of people, maybe 100,000, and they are the ones who shape American politics. The left has, in a way, out-organized us, outsmarted us, and appealed to the predominant issue of justice. We need to start getting organized. We need to start thinking in a fresh way. We need to get our act together, and if we do, I think we can give them not only a run for their money, but we can be instruments at a critical time for the restoration of America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Waking up to ash and dust, I wipe my brow and I sweat my rust.